They didn't even look surprised when they told me I wasn't invited to my own mother's birthday party. That's how I knew they'd rehearsed it. The scent of coffee still hung in the air when I stepped into my parents' kitchen, holding a neatly wrapped gift in both hands, a rare first edition novel my mother had once said she'd die to own. The late afternoon sun cut through the window, warm and soft, and for a fleeting second, I thought this might actually be a pleasant visit. Then I saw their faces. My father stood by the counter, arms folded tightly across his chest. My brother, Lucas, leaned against the refrigerator, wearing that polished smirk I'd hated since childhood. And my mother, her hands twisted a napkin in her lap, eyes down, pretending to study the table's grain. It didn't feel like a family visit. It felt like an ambush. "We need to talk about Saturday," my father said. His tone was calm, almost too calm. That tone he used before he dropped something heavy. "Mom's party?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "I'll be there around 7. Lucas's scoff cut through the air. "That's what we're here to discuss, Maya." My chest tightened. "What about it?" He exchanged a quick look with Dad, the kind that says you say it. Then, of course, Dad did. "We think it might be best if you skip this one." I blinked. "Skip it?" He cleared his throat. "You have to understand. These events are about appearances. Your mother's friends gossip. They compare their kids' careers, homes, lifestyles." "And what about me?" I asked quietly. "What do they say about me?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "You're 30, Maya. You live alone in a rented apartment, work from home doing whatever it is you do with computers, drive an old car, and," he gestured toward me dismissively, "you don't exactly dress for high society." The words landed like stones. "So," I said, forcing a small laugh, "you're saying I'd be an embarrassment." "Don't make this dramatic," Lucas shot back. "We're being realistic. This isn't your scene." I turned to Mom. "Is this what you want?" She finally looked up, her eyes soft but uncertain. "Sweetheart, you know how people talk. Mrs. Whitmore's daughter just made partner at her law firm. The Johnson's son is a surgeon. What do I say when people ask about you? That you work on computers?" "You could say I'm an entrepreneur," I said evenly. Lucas snorted. "An entrepreneur? You've been figuring things out for 8 years. That's not a business, Maya. That's avoidance." My throat burned, but my voice stayed calm. "Right. Avoidance." I set the gift, that stupid, beautiful book, gently on the counter. "Well," I said, "I guess Mom will have to open this without me." No one stopped me as I walked out. Not a word. Not even a goodbye. Outside, the air hit cold against my cheeks, and for the first time in years, I felt the sting of being truly invisible. But as I sat in my car, staring at my shaking hands, something inside me, something that had been silent for too long, hardened. They had no idea who I'd become. 8 years ago, I'd started a small software company with one other developer, Eli, a quiet genius I'd met at a tech conference. We built a data analytics platform for mid-sized businesses, bridging the impossible gap between corporate complexity and spreadsheet simplicity. For the first 2 years, we survived on instant noodles and credit cards. Every dollar we made went straight back into the company. I didn't see daylight some weeks. But by the 3rd year, we had 50 clients. By the 5th, 3 offices. By the 7th, Fortune 500 contracts. And by the 8th year, now, a global tech conglomerate wanted to buy us for $340 million. I'd kept it quiet. Not because I wanted to deceive anyone, but because family had a way of turning success into spectacle. And maybe, part of me wanted to see how long they'd go without ever asking what I actually did for a living. Apparently, forever. 3 days after the kitchen ambush, I sat in a sleek downtown conference room surrounded by lawyers and executives. My signature sealed the deal. $180 million after taxes, my half. Eli popped the champagne. People clapped. The CEO of Tech Venture, Margaret Reeve, took my hand. "Maya, what you've built is extraordinary," she said. "You should be proud." "I am," I told her, and for once, it wasn't a lie. She mentioned the press release scheduled for 6 p.m. "It'll be all over the local and national outlets," she added. "Big deal for this city." I glanced at my watch. 6 p.m., right in the middle of Mom's party. "Perfect timing," I said softly. Margaret smiled. Big plans tonight? My mother's birthday party, I replied. Though I wasn't invited. Her eyebrows shot up. They didn't invite you? On the day you closed a 9-figure deal. I shrugged. They think I don't have a real job. Margaret stared at me for a moment, then burst out laughing. Oh, Maya. I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. That evening, I sat alone in my penthouse apartment, the one my family thought was a rental, barefoot, sipping wine and watching the sunset smear gold across the skyline. I wasn't going to crash their little party. I wasn't going to prove anything. But when my phone started buzzing nonstop at 6:15, I knew the story had broken. The local news headline flashed across the TV. Local tech entrepreneur sells company for $340 million. My face filled the screen. And somewhere across town, at a country club full of gossiping parents and champagne flutes, I imagined my family watching the same report, realizing, too late, who they'd left off the guest list. The first time my mother ever called me extraordinary, she was whispering it through tears, not pride. Shock. It started with my phone lighting up again and again, texts from colleagues, congratulatory messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My inbox was a blur of subject lines. Congratulations, incredible news. Can you believe it? Then came the call from Eli. Maya, have you seen it? You're everywhere, local news, business networks, social media. They're calling you the face of the next tech generation. I laughed quietly, more out of disbelief than excitement. Guess it's official now. Official, he said. It's historic. Enjoy this moment. But my screen buzzed again, another incoming call. My mother's number. Eli, I'll call you back, I said, and hesitated a long second before answering. Maya, she breathed, her voice trembling. Is this true? I could hear the sound of a TV in the background, overlapping voices, clinking glasses. Then a hush. What are they saying, Mom? I asked softly, though I already knew. They're saying you sold a company for hundreds of millions of dollars, she said, half whisper, half gasp. They're showing your picture on TV. They're calling you a visionary. Maya, what's going on? Before I could answer, I heard my father's voice in the background. Let me talk to her. I closed my eyes. I sold my company today, Mom. The one I've been building for 8 years, the one you thought was me avoiding a real job. There was a silence so deep it felt like the whole house was holding its breath. They're all watching, she whispered finally. All of them. Mrs. Whitmore, the Johnsons, your brother's partners. Someone recognized your photo. They're asking why we never mentioned you. Why you're not here. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. What kind of family indeed? My father's voice cut in, louder now. Maya, you need to come here. Right now. You need to explain this. Explain what? I said evenly. That I'm not an embarrassment? That I actually have a career. This isn't fair, he snapped. You kept this from us deliberately. I didn't keep anything, I corrected him. I told you I was running a software company. You just decided that wasn't good enough. You never asked a single question about it. Then Lucas grabbed the phone. His voice was sharp, urgent, almost panicked. Maya, get over here now. Everyone's asking where you are, why you weren't invited. I wasn't invited, I reminded him. Because you said I'd ruin the evening. That was before we knew. Before you knew I was rich? I finished for him. So now I'm acceptable because my bank account makes you look better? Silence. Then, softly, my mother again. Please, Maya. We made a mistake. Come here. Let people see what you've accomplished. Let them see what, Mom? I asked, my voice breaking just slightly. Your successful daughter you can finally brag about now that she's worth something? That's not fair, she whispered, but we both knew it was. In the background, a woman's voice rose clearly over the chaos, Mrs. Whitmore, ever the queen bee of gossip. Carol, your daughter just sold a company for $340 million and she's not even here? What kind of family is this? The irony stung. Their obsession with image had collapsed under its own weight. I have to go, I told my mother quietly. Enjoy your party. Maya, wait. But I hung up before she could finish. Then I did something that surprised even me. I blocked their numbers. For the first time, I felt light. Free. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting beneath studio lights, facing a news anchor from Channel 7 for a live interview. Jennifer Walsh had reached out earlier, and I'd said yes. Not out of spite, but because I wanted my story told my way, without anyone else trying to explain it. The interview was clean, professional. Jennifer spoke about entrepreneurship, resilience, innovation. I talked about late nights, small beginnings, and belief in yourself even when no one else does. She didn't ask about my family, and I didn't offer. At 10, the segment aired. My face flashed across TV screens across the state, not as someone's daughter, not as anyone's embarrassment, but as me. The next morning, my phone was chaos again. Hundreds of messages, calls, interview requests. LinkedIn blew up. Even old college classmates I barely remembered suddenly wanted to catch up. The only message that mattered came from Sarah, my college roommate. Sarah, just saw the news. So proud of you. Not surprised at all. You've always been brilliant, now the world knows. Bet your family's losing their minds. Me, you're not wrong. Talk soon. I smiled at that one. By Sunday, I started hearing about the fallout. A friend of a friend posted a video from the country club, champagne glasses, murmuring guests, the television behind them playing my interview while my parents smiled awkwardly through questions. They'd tried to hide me, and now they couldn't escape me. Lucas called from a new number that evening. I didn't pick up. His voicemail was predictably self-centered. Maya, we need to talk about how you handled this. You could have told us. You made us look stupid. You owe us an explanation and an apology. I laughed out loud. The irony was rich enough to bottle. Later that night, my Aunt Linda called, one of the few people in the family who'd ever treated me like a person instead of a resume. Your mom's a wreck, she said softly. She hasn't stopped crying since Saturday. I'm sorry she's upset, I said. But she's the one who told me not to come. She regrets it now, Linda said. She's realizing how wrong she was. I built my company for 8 years, I said. 8 years, and not one of them asked what I was building. They just assumed failure. That's not something an apology fixes overnight. Linda was quiet for a moment. Maybe not. But do you really want things to end this way? I sighed. I don't want an ending. I just want the truth to mean something this time. That night, as I shut off my phone and looked out at the skyline, the city lights shimmered against the glass, cold, beautiful, indifferent. For the first time, I realized I didn't need their approval. They could spend the rest of their lives explaining me to people. I didn't owe them a single word. The invitation came 3 weeks later, folded in gold paper, like an apology disguised as elegance. I almost laughed when I saw it. Family dinner, Saturday, 7 p.m. Important. No message, no explanation. Just like old times. I set the envelope on my kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time, my coffee going cold beside me. My reflection in the window looked strangely calm, the kind of calm that comes after a storm that's already destroyed everything. I knew what they wanted. Redemption. Rewriting. A photo to post, proof that the Carsons were whole again, the successful daughter finally back in the family fold. But part of me, the small, bruised part that still remembered my mother's voice breaking on the phone, wanted to go. Wanted to see if there was anything left to salvage. That Saturday, I found myself driving through the old neighborhood anyway. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt. The street looked the same, neat lawns, perfect driveways, the illusion of stability. When I parked outside my parents' house, I sat for a full minute, hands gripping the wheel. I almost turned back. But curiosity is its own kind of gravity. The door opened before I even knocked. My mother stood there, smaller than I remembered, like she'd deflated a little since the last time I saw her. Maya, she said softly. You came. I nodded, trying to smile. You invited me. She stepped aside, and I walked in. The smell hit me instantly: roasted chicken, candles, something floral and too sweet. Everything was staged. The table was perfect, like a magazine spread, linen napkins, crystal glasses, my mother's best china. Your father's in the den, she said quietly. He didn't know if you'd actually come. I almost didn't, I admitted. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she said, You look different. So do you. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment. Neither was she. When we finally sat down, my father appeared stiff, formal, like he was meeting a client, not his daughter. "Maya," he said, offering a hand before thinking better of it. "Congratulations. Quite the accomplishment." "Thank you." The clinking of forks and knives was almost comical in its precision. Nobody breathed wrong. My brother Lucas arrived last, holding a bottle of wine like a peace offering. "Hey, superstar," he said, trying for casual. "Still too busy to answer your phone? Still too busy pretending you didn't hang up on me?" I shot back. He winced, but poured the wine anyway. Fair. We ate in silence for several minutes. My mother kept glancing between us, like she was afraid one of us might explode. Then she said, almost to herself, "I've been thinking about what you said. About not listening. About not asking." I looked up. "And?" "You're right," she said simply. "We didn't. We were so focused on appearances, on control, that we stopped seeing you as a person." "I'm sorry." The words landed softly, but they didn't heal. "Not yet." My father cleared his throat. "We were surprised. You kept everything from us." "I tried to tell you," I said quietly. "You just didn't want to hear it. You only listen when it fits your idea of success." He looked down, jaw tight. "Maybe we didn't understand what success really meant." Lucas sighed. "Look, Maya. We messed up, okay? But can we not spend the whole dinner dissecting it? We're here now. You're here. Let's start over." I almost smiled. "Start over?" "Yeah," he said, forcing a grin. "You know, like in those family dramas you love. Someone makes a toast, music swells, everything's fine again." I stared at him. "Life doesn't work like a movie, Lucas." He held up his glass anyway. "To trying, then." We clinked glasses. Even I joined in reluctantly, but genuinely. After dinner, my mother asked me to stay for tea. My father disappeared into his study, pretending to check emails. Lucas took calls on the porch. It was just the two of us at the table. She watched me quietly for a moment, then said, "I was proud of you long before the news." I just didn't know how to say it. I looked up, skeptical. "When was that?" "When you left," she said softly. "You were the only one brave enough to live differently." I envied that. But envy doesn't sound nice in a mother's mouth, so I turned it into judgment. Her voice broke a little. "I'm sorry for that too. Something in me, the armor I'd worn for years, cracked. Just a little. I wanted you to see me," I whispered. "Not just tolerate me." "I see you now," she said. "I promise I do." We sat in silence after that, both pretending not to cry. When I left, the air was cold. Lucas called after me from the porch. "Hey," he said, hands shoved in his pockets. "I mean it, Maya. I was a jerk. I'm glad you made it." I smiled faintly. "Thanks." As I reached my car, he added, "Dad won't say it, but he's proud too. He just doesn't know how." I didn't answer. I just nodded. Back home, I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window again. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "Thank you for coming. It meant more than you know. Love, Mom." I stared at it for a long time before typing back. It meant something to me too. But I didn't hit send. Not yet. I fell asleep on the couch that night, the city lights bleeding through the curtains. For the first time in years, my dreams weren't about running away. They were about going back, not to apologize, but to reclaim something I'd left behind. Something like peace. When I walked back into my parents' house 2 weeks later, I wasn't there for forgiveness. I was there for the truth. My mother had called the night before, her voice small but steady. "Your father wants to talk to you," she'd said. "Alone if you can." Those words had weight. My father had never asked for anything directly before, not from me. He'd always been the kind of man who made declarations, not requests. I almost said no. But curiosity, or maybe hope, pushed me to say yes. So here I was again, in the same living room where I'd once been told I was too dramatic, too emotional, too much. Nothing had changed, not the photos, not the heavy furniture, not the quiet that always made me feel unwelcome. He was waiting for me in the den, standing by the window. No tie this time. No armor. Just him, older, smaller somehow. "Maya," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." I sat down, folding my hands to keep them from shaking. "Mom said you wanted to talk." He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the yard outside. You've done well for yourself. Better than we ever imagined. That's not what you brought me here to say, I replied. A faint smile crossed his face. You're right. You always saw through me. He walked over and sat across from me, elbows on his knees. For a moment, he looked like a man searching for words he hadn't practiced, maybe for the first time in his life. I was hard on you, he said finally. Too hard. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me from what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then said, from disappointment. From the kind of failure I knew too well. He leaned back, eyes distant. When you were 10, my company nearly went under. You didn't know, but I lost almost everything. I thought I could fix it by pretending we were still perfect. I built this house, this family, on control. Because I couldn't afford chaos. His voice cracked slightly. You were chaos, Maya. Bright, unpredictable, too brave for your own good. You scared me. I stared at him, stunned. So you punished me for being what you weren't? He didn't answer. His silence was admission enough. I thought you didn't believe in me, I said. But really, you were afraid I'd remind you of yourself. He nodded slowly. Yes. For a long moment, we just sat there. Two people surrounded by years of words left unsaid. Then he said, quietly, when I saw that interview, when I saw you, I realized I'd been wrong about everything. You didn't fail. You built something real. And you did it without us. I wanted to be angry, to tell him that his apology was too late. But the truth was I'd been waiting my whole life to hear those words. I didn't do it without you, I said softly. I did it in spite of you. There's a difference. He exhaled, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sigh. You're right. You always are. I looked at him then, really looked. The proud man who'd built a fortress around himself, now finally lowering the drawbridge. And for the first time, I saw him not as the father who failed me, but as the man who didn't know how to love differently. My mother peeked in after a while, eyes red but hopeful. Tea, she asked, her voice trembling. We both nodded. When she left the room, my father turned to me. You should come by more often. Not for dinners. Just to visit. I might, I said. He smiled, faint but real. Your mother would like that. That evening, as I drove home, I passed the same old landmarks, the park where I learned to ride a bike, the coffee shop where I wrote my first business plan, the bridge I used to cross to get to the city. Each one felt different now, less like an escape route, more like a map of how far I'd come. When I got home, I opened my laptop and pulled up an old folder labeled First Drafts. It was full of notes from my early startup days, half-formed ideas, sketches, journal entries. One caught my eye. If they won't believe in you, build something they can't ignore. I smiled. I had done exactly that. A few days later, my mother texted me again. Family brunch next Sunday? Just us. No guests. No performance. Just family. This time, I didn't hesitate. I'll be there. When Sunday came, it was simple: pancakes, sunlight, laughter that didn't feel forced. Lucas told stupid jokes. My father even made one himself. My mother smiled more than she spoke. For the first time, there were no raised voices. No careful pretending. Just quiet, awkward honesty, the kind that only exists when people are finally done trying to win. That night, as I was leaving, my father called after me. Maya, he said, stepping onto the porch. One more thing. I turned. You were never too much, he said softly. We just weren't enough. The words hit me like a wave, gentle, but unstoppable. I didn't cry. I just nodded, because sometimes peace doesn't come with tears. Sometimes it comes with understanding. Driving home, I realized something simple. Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about deciding it doesn't get to control you anymore. My family hadn't changed overnight, and maybe they never would. But for the first time, they really saw me, not as the girl who didn't fit, but as the woman who finally stopped asking for permission to exist. And somehow, that was enough.